Hello, and welcome to this lesson of our C Programming Foundations tutorial series. I'm Reza, and I'm happy to have you join me on this journey to mastering the C programming language. Alright, so up to this point, we've been diving into data structures and all those cool tools that help us play around with data based on different algorithms, right? Well, now we're about to explore another super cool aspect of C programming, and that's functions. Think of functions as a really smart way to organize and manage your code. They're like those handy gadgets in a toolkit that let you perform specific tasks in a neat, organized way. With functions, you can take a big, complex program and break it down into smaller, more manageable pieces. Each function is like a mini program doing its own thing, which makes your overall code cleaner, more efficient, and a lot easier to handle. It's like having a team of specialists where each one takes care of a specific part of the project. In C, a function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task. It can take some input, do something with that input, and then produce an output. The beauty of functions is that they help you organize your code into distinct sections, each handling a particular part of your program's overall task. This not only makes your code more readable and maintainable, but also allows you to reuse code efficiently. When you create a function, you define what it should do and what it needs to do its job. These are the inputs, also known as parameters or arguments. You also specify what it gives back after it's done. The output, known as the return value. For example, you might have a function that takes two numbers, input, and calculates their sum, output. Once you've written this function, you can use it anywhere in your program, whenever you need to add two numbers, without rewriting the code for addition each time. So, functions in C are all about breaking down your program into manageable, reusable pieces, each doing its own little bit of the overall puzzle. They are fundamental to structured programming, making your code cleaner, more modular, and way easier to follow. So imagine a function in programming like it's a recipe in your favorite cookbook. You know how in a cookbook each recipe has its own name, like chocolate cake, and it tells you exactly what ingredients you need, the steps to follow, and then boom, you end up with something delicious at the end. Well, that's pretty much what a function in coding is like. First off, every function has a name, kind of like chocolate cake, but in coding it might be something like calculate sum. This name gives you a hint about what the function does. Then think about the ingredients in a recipe. In a function, instead of flour and sugar, you have inputs, which are called parameters. So just like you might need 2 cups of flour for your cake, a function might need inputs like int a and int b. Next up is the function body. This is like the actual steps in your recipe. It tells the computer exactly what to do with the inputs, parameters you've given it. And you know how your cake recipe results in a delicious chocolate cake. In coding, a function often spits out a result too, which we call the return value. Like if your function is about adding numbers, it would return their sum. The coolest part, just like you can reuse your cake recipe for lots of different occasions, functions let you reuse bits of your code. Write a function once and you can use it all over the place in your program. So, in a nutshell, understanding how to use a recipe, or in this case, call a function, lets you whip up all sorts of cool things in your program, guided by the instructions in your codebase, just like a recipe in a cookbook. Alright, so in C programming, when we talk about functions, they come in different flavors based on what they do and how they're used. Let's look at the common types you'll run into. First up, there are these things called standard library functions. Think of them as the ready-made tools in C's toolbox. You've probably seen or used some of them like printf for printing stuff out, scanf for reading input, starlen for getting the length of a string, or rand for generating random numbers. These functions are part of the C standard library, which means they're just there ready to use. You don't have to write any extra code to declare them or anything. Then you've got user-defined functions. These are the custom-made tools you create. As a programmer, you get to decide what these functions are called, what kind of data they're going to hand back, that's the return type, what ingredients they need, those are the parameters, and what they actually do, that's the implementation part. User-defined functions are great because you can tailor them to do exactly what you need for your specific program. So, in a nutshell, functions in C can either be those handy pre-built ones that come with the language, or they can be the special custom ones you write yourself to handle unique tasks in your code. This C program calculates the area of a circle given its radius. 1. The program starts by including standard input-output and math libraries for basic I/O functions and mathematical operations. 2. It defines a constant pi as an approximation of the mathematical constant pi, which is essential for circle calculations. 3. In the main function, two double precision floating point variables, radius and area, are declared to store the circle's radius and its calculated area respectively. 4. The program prompts the user to enter the radius, reading and storing this input in the radius variable. 5. It then checks if the entered radius is non-negative. If the radius is negative, an error message is displayed. Otherwise, the program calculates the area using the formula and prints the result formatted to 2 decimal places. 6. The program ends by returning 0, indicating successful termination. This simple program demonstrates basic C programming concepts, including input, output operations, conditional statements, and the use of standard library functions. Alright, so this code is a simple C program for counting the number of characters in a user's name. 1. First, it includes two libraries, sadio.h for basic input-output functions and string.h which is needed for string operations. 2. The program begins with the main function where a character array named name is declared large enough to hold 100 characters. 3. The user is then prompted to enter their name. The gets function is used to read this input. 4. After the name is inputted, the starlen function from the string.library calculates the length of the name, essentially counting how many characters it contains. 5. Finally, the program prints out the number of characters in the name and then terminates successfully. It's a straightforward program for a basic task. Here is a code challenge for you to get more practice. Guess the number game.